I'm Gareth Jenkins. I'm a client director at AtkinsRéalis for Defence Nuclear. After school, I went to university in London to study zoology, and then I fell into a few jobs in London doing recruitment and advertising sales, which I didn't particularly enjoy. I had a friend from university who was in the Navy, and I met up with him on one Sunday in April '99, and I was obviously moaning about my job. And he said to me, well, if you're not enjoying it, why don't you join the Royal Navy? That led to an interview in May 1999, and I joined the Navy in September '99 and stayed for 24 years, spending most of my time in the submarine service. To become a submarine captain, you have to complete a 6-month course, the Submarine Command course, which is known as the Perisher course. Failing the course means effectively the end of your submarine career. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was called to the control room to look at a Canadian warship that was closing our position. It was about 1,800 yards away. And normally in that situation, you would duck underneath the warship, but I couldn't in this occasion because the water was too shallow. So I made the decision to surface the submarine. I was then asked to the wardroom to explain my thought process to the person teaching the course. I want to explain that we were in a £500 million submarine in an exercise, not on an actual covert patrol. The safest thing to do was to surface the submarine, deal with the exercise, regroup, and then dive and continue. He agreed with my thought process, and I walked out of that meeting still on the command course, and I knew I've just passed the course. I'm good for this. Being in command of a submarine, you never have all the information you would like. So the important thing is to act on the information. You've got to make sure you understand it. I remember being in command of HMS Astute, doing an exercise in the Mediterranean Sea off the French coast, and one of my crew, a communicator, came to me at 10 p.m. with a signal from our headquarters in London saying there's a vote in Parliament on Wednesday as to whether or not the UK is conduct military operations in Syria against the Assad regime. That's all the information I had. So taking that information, I had to talk to my heads of department, hatch a plan to disembark the students in Toulon, and then start making our way east towards Syria whilst the headquarters did its planning. It would send me my route and my orders in more detail in the days to come. 48 hours later, the answer from Parliament was no, and we were diverted to Gibraltar instead. I think the main sacrifices anybody makes in the military is the family sacrifices. The serviceman or woman volunteers to serve in the Army, the Air Force, or the Navy and pursues that career. I made that choice, but my family did not. In my experience, I was away a lot during my daughter's first few years. When she was 3, she'd often say, "Mummy, do it," if she fell over or she needed a bedtime story, or "Mummy, do it, not Daddy." Because I guess I'd been away for so much, we didn't have a great relationship. But years later, I remember very clearly mowing the lawn one evening about 7 p.m. and my wife was putting her to bed and my daughter said, "No, Mummy, I want Daddy to read my story tonight." And my wife said, "Oh, Daddy's cutting the grass, I'll do it." And then she said, "Just tell Daddy to do it," because he always does exactly what I tell him. So perhaps I was overcompensating with my daughter, but now she's nearly 17, we have a very, very good relationship. I think one of the main challenges facing the submarine service today is submarine availability. There just aren't enough submarines available to do the operations that the government would like the Navy to be able to do. And this is due to a plethora of complicated and complex interconnected reasons. One of which, for example, is dock availability in the Navy's dockyards in Plymouth and Faslane to do critical and essential submarine maintenance. Without a dock to put the submarine, you can't maintain it, which means maintenance takes longer and ultimately it impacts availability. The availability issues impact the people because the programs change constantly. So it creates instability for the families and uncertainty. And it also means that if submarines are late going to sea, it means the submarine that's on patrol today has to be extended and therefore comes back longer. So it's been recently reported that patrols have been more than 200 days. This, of course, has a massive impact on the crew who are expected to be away from their families for a very long time. I think looking back on my career in the Navy, the thing I got out of it was the fact that military service is fundamentally a people-based endeavor. It's about getting on with people from all sorts of different backgrounds, religions, sexualities, whatever. But when you put those people in a submarine and send it to sea for maybe 100 days or a 280-day deployment, none of that other stuff matters. You all become one crew, one really tight-knit team, and you get on really well. I think in a job like a client director or any job in AtkinsRéalis, there are similarities. We all have to understand the strategic objectives of the company, the 2030 ambition for a growth plan, and our part in it and how we deliver that. So yes, it's different. I'm not going to sea in the submarines for weeks on end away from my family now. I still think I have a role in understanding the strategic objectives of the company and how I can help the company deliver that. To overcome the issues facing the submarine enterprise, I think the Navy and the Ministry of Defence just need to work closer with industry. AtkinsRéalis in the UK alone has over 16,000 professionals from all sorts of backgrounds, from civil engineering, nuclear engineering, software engineers, all of whom could be deployed on these problems facing the Ministry of Defence. But the Ministry of Defence has to engage with industry to allow industry to provide that support. It's not just another job, it's a purpose-driven calling.